My M6 is error light free for the first time since I bought the car a few months ago. But getting to that point required my first big shop bill with the car, so let's break it down and talk about it. The goal here is to offer you guys who are potentially future M6 owners clarity and transparency on how much it actually costs to maintain one of these cars. The thing is there are people all over the internet who have either never owned one of these or have had just a bad ownership experience with a bad example, who are all over the internet shouting nonsense about how expensive these cars are to maintain. Now, I'm not saying that they're not expensive to maintain, but a lot of these commenters are never giving specific figures for anything, or if they do, they're giving you dealer quotes, which, let's be honest, none of us get service work at the dealership unless we have a warranty. So with that being said, how much did my 75,000 mile M6 just cost me here at my local shop? First, let's break down what I actually needed to get done. First things first, I needed to get an oil change done, which on an M6 costs $350 if you're having somebody do it for you. The next thing that needed to be addressed was the biggest item that showed up on the post-purchase inspection. The dual clutch transmission was leaking like a garden hose. So much so, in fact, that despite this car having like 3 belly pans underneath it, it was still leaking enough to get all over my driveway. The cost of fixing the transmission leak was $2,100, but it was a bit more of an extensive repair than just replacing the gasket that was leaking. Because the car does have 75,000 miles on it, my shop mechanic recommended that I replace the filter inside the transmission. Actually, according to the invoice here, there are 2 separate filters. There is a suction filter, which the labor for was $350, and then there was a pressure filter, which was $140. The other issue that needed to be addressed was the fact that the car had a check engine light. When we had ran the codes when the car was inspected the first time, it was for some fuel tank evap related issue, meaning it wasn't really a big deal. It wasn't affecting the performance of the car, really not hurting the car in any way, but it was throwing a check engine light, which is obviously kind of annoying to look at. I really don't know how much specifically it was to deal with the check engine light because the invoice is broken down pretty significantly. The total amount came down to $3,276.33, 214 of those dollars being thanks to California tax. So if you don't live in California, adjust that tax rate accordingly. Now, here's what's really interesting, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of you guys in the comments that are like, oh, I would have just rather do this myself. You save all the money. They're wrecking you on labor, blah, 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 blah. Well, if you take a look at the breakdown on the bottom right of this invoice, you will see that the parts for these repairs was actually $2,259 and the labor was only $800. I say only $800 because it's a lower number than the $2,200. $800 is obviously still a lot of money. The point being is that a majority of the cost for everything that I just paid for was actually in parts and not in labor. Quick pause here. I mentioned that it's mostly parts cost and not labor. I actually sent this invoice to one of my friends and he found on FCP Euro that Liquid Moly makes a full dual clutch service kit, which pretty much includes everything that my shop charged me for, except for one of the items that's $164. So here's what's interesting. My shop charged me $1,469 for the parts that service the dual clutch transmission. The kit on FCP Euro is about $450. I'm assuming that my shop used all OEM BMW stuff because that's just kind of how they roll, and that would also kind of explain why it's so much more expensive than the FCP Euro option. But I wanted to throw that in there because if you guys do work with a shop that maybe doesn't only use OEM BMW stuff, you might be able to save yourself about $1,100 on the bill that I'm sharing with all of you guys. So let my mistake be a lesson to you that even though that this bill is really high, there is some possibility out there to have these services done for a little bit less. back to the main video. One last point I'd like to mention. I purchased this BMW M6 anticipating that there were going to be quite a few things wrong with the car. Now, the car did have extensive service history, but I mean, come on, it had 70,000 miles, catless downpipes, upgraded intercoolers, aftermarket wheels. I went into this assuming that this car was going to be beat to death, and there was going to be at least like $6,000 to $7,000 worth of repairs needed to get it mechanically perfect. That's something I really want to stress to you guys. If you are searching for an M6 and you're hoping and praying that the one that you want doesn't need any service work right as you buy it, you honestly probably shouldn't buy one. Anything that goes wrong on this car is going to be around $1,000, if not more. It's not necessarily a guarantee that these things will happen. In fact, it seems like my particular car was maintained really well, and this transmission leak along with this evap thing, which is apparently very common for all BMWs, not just the M6 specifically. But aside from those issues, this car realistically is probably not going to give me a lot of problems for a significant amount of time. A lot of that is just luck on my part. I got lucky, and it seems like the person who had this car before me took pretty decent care of it despite putting all these aftermarket parts on. But the car continuing not to give me consistent problems has a lot to do with the way that I'm going to take care of it. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. In fact, right before I parked the car, I just did a nasty second to third gear burnout right in front of my house. But you have to know how to properly bead on these cars if you're going to bead on them. You have to make sure that the oil is warm. You have to make sure that the car sits for at least a couple of minutes before you turn it off, especially if you've been super rude to it. You have to change your oil very consistently. I mean, seriously, 3,000 to 4,000 miles seems to be the sweet spot. I'd also recommend doing what I do, which is taking a sample of your oil, or having your shop take a sample of the oil and sending it out to this place called Blackstone Laboratories. Blackstone Laboratories will analyze your oil for any metals inside, which can give you the heads up on whether or not one of your rod bearings is about to slip, which is everybody's biggest fear with the F10 M5 and the F12 M6. This video turned into a little bit more of a rant than I really wanted it to be, but the moral of the story is I had my first big bill with the M6. It was a little over $3,200, but at least from where I'm standing right now, the car will be pretty much problem-free for, I would guess, for at least the next 20, maybe 30,000 miles, other than things like oil changes, brake pads, regular maintenance. However, I am going to continue to document my journey as an M6 owner, so as more problems pop up, if they pop up, you guys will know about it. Realistically, if you guys aren't seeing a ton of new uploads as far as the M6 is concerned on the channel, that probably means that the M6 is running perfectly fine and there's not a whole lot of crazy drama to share with the internet. Anyway, guys, I hope that this video helped educate some of you on what the true ownership cost of a BMW M6 could be. All of us live different lives, so I can't give you guys specific figures on like, this is what it takes to own an M6. But what I can tell you is every single time the car costs me money, I can go ahead and make a video for you guys, let you know what the experience has been, and ultimately, hopefully that will give you guys some reassurance or more information that you need to make a decision on whether or not an M6 or an M5 is the car for you. At this point, I put 4,000 miles on the car. This is the dumbest, most ignorant, fast, comfortable, nice car that I've ever owned in my entire life. But you know, it comes with some costs, unfortunately. So it is what it is. But anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any suggestions for future content, let me know in the comments below. I eventually will be making a trip out to European Auto Source out near Anaheim, I think is where they're at, to get the car dyno tested. Again, the seller told me the car made 780 wheel. On the last video, there's a lot of you guys in the comments saying that there's absolutely no way that this car makes 780. I've never driven anything over 800, and the last time I was in anything even close to that was like 6-7 years ago. So I really couldn't tell you how much power this makes. I just know it's really damn fast. So hopefully we get some dyno content coming up for you guys soon. You can figure out exactly how much a full bolt-on 91 octane crappy California gas BMW M6 makes to the wheels. Okay, I'm done. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. I'll see you guys in the next one.